Hi, thanks for joining me. This is the September Global Earth Psi predictions. So I'm just sitting here focusing for a minute or two on the collective conscious energy, trying to pull in as much as we can for the September energy field, which is in about a week actually, just less than a week. I think it's going to be very potent for some reason. We've got a lot of planets going retrograde, 6 of them, and some of them are going to affect us personally at the interrelationship level, and that might be what creates a degree of turbulence, but I think it's going to be bigger than that. And then as these 6 retrograde planets release themselves, they will propel literally energy into October. So the astrological theory for October is that there will be very big cosmic changes, which leads me to think that September is going to be quite potent. I'm going to use the 3 decks of cards that you see in front of you, which I wouldn't traditionally incorporate this, which is the Ching. Someone last month on the Psi Global Readings suggested using this as an interpreter for understanding some of the other cards that turned up. And I felt that was a really good idea actually. So we will use the Ching at the end. Whether it enables us to understand other cards at a deeper perspective or gives its own entire story or language to the reading, we'll have to wait and see. So let's start first with some from the Morgan Greer Tarot. This is the Psi deck, P-S-Y, Psi Tarot. So we will focus here on the collective conscious energies of the planet. That includes you while you're listening, infusing your energy into this as well. What is in store globally for us all in September? That's actually not too bad. The Knight of Pentacles has jumped out. This one's come out on its side, which means it could be transitioning in. The Queen of Swords, we've got 2 court cards. And I talked about relationships being on the core of our mind in September. And these are court cards, and they do represent relationships straight up. People around us, people in the world, so things that people are doing, saying. The 5 of Pentacles, I'll just pick one more. This is for September 2021. Oh. Another one flipped out. I won't take it, but it's actually a very positive card. It's the 10 of Pentacles, and we have the 2 of Swords over here reversed. 2 court cards, 2 swords, 2 pentacles. Pentacles generally refer to finances. So I think maybe global finances might be heralded in the month of September, or even personal finances. Interestingly, here in New Zealand, we have just gone into a total lockdown again thanks to the Delta virus, so we are really restricted here, and that will have an impact on us personally, financially, and it will see some of this occur, especially for businesses in hospitality and tourism. But we will also see this occur, which happened for us last year after the lockdown. There was a surge in spending or a surge in investing, and especially in things like property here in New Zealand. So if I'm just looking at that perspective, which I'm feeling quite intensely right now, being in the throes of this, intense lockdown, that could be a summation of New Zealand's energy fields. But if we're looking globally, this one is always heralded as quite a bright, solid, slow-moving, positive energy in terms of financial aspects. We see this glowing red sun over here. It always reminds me of eclipses. The second round of eclipses for the year are coming in November and December, I believe. So whether or not this is pointing to a future time frame, I'm unsure. But the pentacles are generally very slow moving, and sometimes if you're using them as a timing mechanism, they can be referring to a long period, like a year ahead. So this card gives off this feeling of good, positive, grounded, slow movement forward. It could be saying it's a return or like a new beginning, because that's what the knights are, a new beginning. It could be a new concept or laws or modes of finance globally. If you were thinking of a word, and if we're thinking of something like, say, the share market, I think of him more as a bullish looking energy. I feel there's positivity here. But then we've got this dichotomy over here. This is the opposite. So what goes on in between these two fields of energy that seems to push them in polar opposites? Doing, doing. It's this. So this is air sign energy in particular. But it's also communication, verbalization. It's also documents, written things, contracts, laws, politicians, governments maybe. Although this would tend to be more governmental. This could be a major female leader globally, like a politician. It could be someone like our Prime Minister. I'm not sure if she's an air sign or not. It could be another global female leader somewhere who somehow has a role or a play in something that's going on. This usually means uncertain of a direction, unable to make one's mind up. But when it's reversed, it's actually talking more about moving forward and forming an alliance or an allegiance or a partnership. So maybe this person who has been either ruling or doing something on their own might team up and create something like a merger. This could be talking about business or government or politics or countries or some form of agreement. It could be climate change talks, it could be peace talks, it might be anything. It makes an agreement one way or another, or pushes something together. And I'm thinking partnerships because this is two, this often relates to a partnership. But then it seems to create this over here. Or maybe this happens because of this. This could represent the feeling of, and this is very interesting, Afghanistan at the moment. If you look at the person in the picture, she is wearing a hijab. And he looks like a very wounded person, as if battle. I'm pondering if Afghanistan goes through a crisis far worse than what they're seeing at the moment. The Taliban are ruthless, really. And I don't feel good about the females in Afghanistan in particular, or anyone's life. I just think that they must live the most emaciated, cruel, horrendous existence. And I think that is going to be a detriment in this month of September. It could affect many people, and maybe money is deployed to go towards it. But this card won't just reference that either. This card can also reference things like the virus, because these people are ill, both of them. They also feel cut off and isolated from their communities. So it is definitely a card of lockdown. Now that's interesting because I've been doing all the astrological readings and this card has come out a few times, and I thought to myself, I need to assign a value to it, and if it comes out in like a psi reading or a global predictions, I think this is the card of isolation. Now that's only just come back to my mind now. I hadn't been thinking of that, but I believe that to be true. So does this mean more global lockdowns or isolations for some reason? Could it mean a surge in this blasted thing? Could it mean a new mutation? I really hope not. But other than that, I don't see massive negativity in the cards. There's definitely some positivity somewhere hiding in here. And this isn't necessarily negative. It could be feisty. When you see the swords are often about rippling things, creating tension, making something happen, and sometimes quickly and sometimes quite volatilely. So it could be referencing that as well. Let's put them to the side and see what the psi cards are going to say for September global predictions for 2021. The Mother card, more female energy. So we're getting a lot of feminine energy coming through. And possibly that is, I don't know, is it because of we're moving into the Libra energy in September as well, from on like around the equinox day, which is a very potent day. Oh wow, look at this. The beauty. The Tower. Just another 3 or so from here. The Cave, the Warrior, the Home, the Voyage, and the Sun. The Sun was out in August twice, or 3 references to the sun, meaning heat, lots of heat, crop damage, children also implicated. It will be the same, I think, for September, so still hot, potentially breaking heat records, and maybe this is part and parcel with things like the fire as well. Also maybe solar ejections coming our way, so coronal hole increases, maybe a flare coming towards Earth, we'll see. So with all of this feminine energy over here, with the Queen of Swords, well, the Queen of Swords, Mother, and the Beauty is really hinting at female energy. The female energy around the planet can be very nurturing and can be very supportive and very emotional as well. So maybe emotions are running high. The Mother card also, I have found when we look at it really closely, these people look ghastly ill, like to me like the plague ill. And children seem to be really heavily implicated, as they do over here in the Sun card. So what does that tell us? You can make up your own concept or mind about that. Sometimes the Mother card also, to me, references Mother Earth. So something about our planet. We know it's equinox day. We know it can be quite turbulent. This could be a sign of an increase in energy fields around her, meaning things like earthquakes, maybe strange weather. There's a few play on weather cards in this reading. There's this one, this one, this one, and this one as well. And there's a few earthquake cards. These 3 are earthquake cards, as is this. So is this weather, actually. So we are looking, even though I said emotions and humans initially, here we definitely have human interaction in these 3. We have lots of weather action over this side, or earth-related activity, maybe quakes, things like that. The beauty is often denoted as a female who perhaps resides in somewhere in Europe, often in the UK, often even in London. It can be a pregnancy announced, the birth of a baby, a wedding. It can be a slightly more negative scenario, sometimes someone who is well known, either a celebrity, an artist, like a musician, or a political or royalty who has something more traumatic that happens to them unexpectedly. You have to keep your eye on that for the beauty. With the Tower, you could assume it could literally be the same meaning as a normal Tower tarot card, so something volatile, violent, explosive. I often think of the look of that tower as again being in the older established parts of the world where humanity has lived for longer periods and built buildings like that. So we're talking possibly through Europe, even up into the Middle East. Sometimes Italy is referenced when this Tower card comes out, and it can be bad weather, so intense storms that create flooding through old villages. Now we've already seen plenty of this through, I think it was July and August, so this is a possibility again. The sky in the back of this card is laden with what looks like to me wet clouds, pouring, heavy rain. Now I think we've just had one a day ago somewhere, actually it was America, intense rain, 400 millimeters of rain in 20 hours or something. We'll see more of that type of synopsis or scenario going on. It can also mean earthquakes. It could also just mean some sort of corruption or falling or event that's very sudden and is like a shock. The Cave is hunkering down, hiding from something, stuck in something, so stuck under or in. It could reference the falling down of a structure like this, such as we saw in Florida when the big apartment building collapsed. I certainly hope not. This person is in fear or just like depression or something, like get me out of this horrible situation, or I can't deal with this anymore. So it can be a physical aspect, like I am stuck in here and I'm very frightened and I can't get out, or I just can't deal with this anymore. So there's two dynamics of energy really pulling up quite strongly from that card. I'm actually feeling it now quite intensely. It can also reference mountains and volcanoes, so volcanic activity, things along those lines. Also things to do with mines, miners being stuck, also the subway. The Warrior. He literally is giving off the same message as this one in many ways. It's a gloomy card, but it's an aggressive card of fighting, and he looks very old through that European or Middle Eastern area. So when he comes out, there is anger in the air and there is fighting. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen the Warrior for a long time, a long time. So I think with his return, he is portending more than your usual fighting or aggravation or aggression around the world. And I'm thinking he seems very up in that European bloc or the older part of the world. I'm even saying through that Afghanistan type area. There's also something else in the card, and I think I misinterpret it. I think this hazy stuff here is actually smoke, but to me it looks as though the river has broken its banks and is exploding through that village like a tsunami. So either an inland tsunami or the possibility of a sea-related tsunami because of big quakes. The home card often references where I live. I'm the reader and I live in New Zealand. So it can reference things going on in New Zealand. We are in lockdown and we are stuck at home, literally. And it is a major one, and it's a whole new realm with this Delta thing. You know, are we doing it right? Are there other ways of addressing it? Is it going to be for a long, long time? So on, so on. It also references fires, sometimes references buildings on fire, not necessarily just in my country. It could be close neighbours, but it can extend itself out globally for that message. It also references earthquakes, sometimes in and around New Zealand or neighbouring countries. The voyage, again, for some reason, right from the beginning when I started doing these predictions, I think of the Middle East. Is it the land up there? Is it the old compass? I'm unsure, but there's more references here to the Middle East. This is also a reference to the sun, and it's sitting next to the sun. It's also a bit warrior inspired, but it does talk about boats and the ocean, or ships. We don't have many ships anymore, as in terms of tourist type ships, but certainly we have a lot of freight travel that goes by sea globally. So is this impacted for one reason or another? Is it impacted possibly because of warring fractions, or something that happens that blocks canals again, like that last big ship that got stuck in the canal? It could be anything. It can also reference the oceans, storms that brew within the oceans, and we have this cave above us which also references storms, severe storms. But it can also reference earthquakes. So these three cards in particular, and possibly even this one, are hinting at shaking and quaking. This one usually references quakes in the northern hemisphere, this one often in the southern. Well, I've seen worse, most definitely. I may be not going deep enough, and again, I love your interpretations. I love the way you add your comments, the thoughts that you have about the cards, how you interpret them, how you feel about them. It's actually quite important to actually add all of those theories in. Let's come to these, the I Ching. So I picked 2 cards. I can only have 2. And what we do is we take the difference between the hexagrams. I will work it out. I will get the book when we've pulled the 2 cards, just to make sure that we're doing it the right way. But this is for September 2021, I Ching messages. That to me is 1. Liaison 44. Well, we've talked about liaisons before with this card. You know, meeting together or forming something or forming a group. They're really big cards. They're quite hard to shuffle on this angle, actually. There it is. After completion, and that's a volcano in that picture. Oh wow, look at that. That's really interesting. That's a volcano erupting, and that is a tornado touching down on paddocks or crops. Really wild, dark, brewing energy in terms of weather. So maybe tornadoes, I'm not even sure if it's tornado season in America, but maybe there are some really destructive tornadoes that come specifically, and maybe there is an eruption of a volcano, but that's like that's lava at the top of that mountain, like really flowing out. Okay, so just checking the book again. This first card represents the present, like the here and now, and this represents what we're looking into. So I can in fact read the text from this liaison for you, and that is kind of what is evolving. And when I read the differing hexagrams of this one, that will tell us what we can expect or what it will merge into. So I'll find this page here, 44, 44, which comes to an 8, which can be quite materialistic and provident in terms of money. But let's see what it has to say about this liaison. An attraction is strong, but the relationship may not be destined to last. A coming together of dispatriate forces may not be what it seems. Hello. An apparently harmless but potentially dangerous element has attracted attention and is pulling on a stronger one. A traditional Chinese image is of a bold but immature young woman using her charms to gain influence over someone in a position of power. Ironically, the powerful person dallies with her, thinking it can do no harm. Famous last thoughts. When power shifts into the hands of those who are not prepared for it, misfortune can come to all parties. Still, you need not fear meetings with those whose positions are different from your own, as long as you are free of ulterior motives. Be wary of temptations that arise because of the power of your position, or conversely, your connection to someone in an important position. Combat temptations to take unfair advantage of power differentials by nipping them in the bud before they can flower. As soon as you become aware of a dangerous liaison, promptly speak up or step away. When honourable and balanced, there are indeed times when a rendezvous of the yielding and the strong turns out to be a great opportunity for a positive and constructive relationship. The difference between careless connection and a relationship of depth lies in the motives of one's heart. How sincere are you? Now, this message from the I Ching can be taken at the personal level, so some of you may find there's a really personal message in there for you. For others of us, we will be looking at this from the global perspective and possibly be pondering which leaders or people on the planet are they referring to, and which situations is it that they're talking about coming up. But there's definitely this woman who could be a major player some way or another in the month of September, who could be a global personality that may make this effect or create some sort of ripple. Now, what we do here is we work out the difference between the hexagrams. So the first one is different. The first one is the bottom one. So the first one is different. So we will be reading hexagram number 1. The second one is different. We will read number 2. Number 3 is the same. We will read number 4, that is different. Number 5 is the same. And number 6 is different. So we will be reading 1, 2, 4 and 6 on after completion, which is 63, which actually adds to 9, and September is the 9th month of the year. So let's have a look and see what this future projection of energy for this month is either going to lead us into or perturbate energy into. It's almost the last card, actually. That's really weird too. I think it is it's nearly the last card of the I Ching. So the first one we were reading was number 1. In the period following the completion of a major undertaking, the momentum of previous effort still exists, and there is a tendency to continue onward. But be careful, for once a project has reached its proper end point, continuation for its own sake can bring misfortune. Pressing ahead after completion can threaten to bring collapse to established success. Even so, no real harm results if your approach and demeanour have been correct. And I wonder if that's a message about the whole American withdrawal from Afghanistan, and about the completion of it. You know, it's a whole strange conundrum in itself. So the next one we were reading was line number 2. If a kind of stagnation has seeped into the current situation because of past success, your talents may be hidden by these circumstances or by the efforts of those in positions of power. When this happens, it is important to avoid attracting attention to yourself through immodest behaviour. Just be patient. That which is rightfully yours cannot be denied in the end. That's a nice positive message. Then the next one is number 4. Even during times of harmony and prosperity, certain imperfections may still show themselves. While it is important not to overreact, the prudent will take decisive action to eliminate little problems before they are allowed to become big ones. And again, that's a fairly positive message. Then we are reading number 6, I believe. When one has scaled a dangerous cliff, there is a natural tendency to look back and revel in the drama of having overcome it. But lingering may present a greater danger. What has been safely in the background or in the past may be gaining on you. Don't look back. Whatever you have transcended is best left behind. Focus on forward movement. Don't hesitate or allow yourself to be complacent or self-congratulatory. If you take the time to pause, greater risks could quickly mount up. This is a moment of opportunity, but one in which seemingly stable circumstances conceal negative influences. At present, a failure to move forward might cause you to fall back, perhaps into hazardous circumstances. To bask in admiration for yourself and how well you have done to achieve this position will only invite back the old challenges. Move on. Now, the difficulty with the I Ching is it's so wide open as to who are these messages for. Are these the messages for the takeover Taliban people of Afghanistan, or are these the messages for the people leaving, or are these the messages for the citizens or the warriors, or are these global messages for a certain country or for a certain ethic, you know, or structure or dynamic? Who knows? So we have to ponder that. There's a great deal of pondering involved in coming up with where you believe the I Ching is actually taking us. I think to be a comprehensive and proficient I Ching reader, you would spend many, many years on interpreting those words that come with it. I do feel it's a very, very accurate tool of divination and very ancient, so it carries through the test of time, and the words that arrive will generally be very accurate, but we just have to figure, where do we place those words, to whom are we assigning them? So anyhow, hey, thanks for joining me. I've enjoyed your company. It's really nice to connect. Please leave your comments. I love it when you do, and I think everyone else does. I wish you all safety and prosperity for September, and may we all move forward, because going back, we can never go back, and I can tell you now, nothing is going to be the same. Be safe. Namaste.